This is going to be a little visceral. My child just vomited on my Oriental rug. There are stomach acids in vomit that will affect the color and the mordants in the rug dyes. So you need to get it off your rug. I say just as soon as you can take care of your child, and I will show you how to take care of a mess like this. For starters, you can use either a carpet cleaner or a shop vac, or if you don't have either of those, you can use just a bowl and water and a towel. I need to feel what direction is smooth. Going this direction, the colors get darker and it's rough. There's resistance. That means it's going against the pile. The pile moves in this direction. It's smooth. When I rub my hand that direction, the colors lighten because that's the way they pulled the knots as they were weaving the rug. So when I vacuum, I'm going to vacuum in the same direction as the pile. Just got plain water here we're using. At this point, when you've done the first rinse, I would suggest doing a second rinse, and then you want to add some Dawn soap to water and put that on and just kind of scrub it with your hands, if you know what I mean. Rough up the pile, and then that's the only time you want to go against the pile. The rest of the time you're going to be going with the pile. Remember to get, and you might want to get like a broader area than where the actual vomit was, because if any little bit of that sprayed and there's that bile and it stays on the rug, it's going to impact the mordants. It'll strip the mordants off the dye.
And what are mordants?
It's a chemical used to make the dye color fast. Natural mordants would be vinegar, salt. It wasn't on long enough to affect the mordant, but you can see that there's still residual vomit in there. So that's why I'm doing a second rinse. And then when I actually put the soap on, I'm going to go to a broader area. I do have the soap mixture in this time. You can see that there are suds. They're woven so that the yarn lays down like scales. It lies on top of itself, and that's really important to know. The direction of the pile makes a difference when you're rolling a rug. It makes a difference when you're cleaning, when you're vacuuming. You always need to know what direction the yarn was pulled, what direction the pile is going. So now I've got the soap done and all of the pile is lying the same direction, and that's important because it helps keep dirt on top instead of it getting underneath. It helps keep things like vomit on top instead of getting underneath. It's already feeling like semi-dry to the touch, which is great. A carpet cleaner probably wouldn't have done quite as good a job. But let's say I didn't have a wet vac or a carpet cleaner. I would take a paper towel, I would wipe the chunkiness off, then I would take a bowl, pour the water over it, and use some kind of scoop, a spoon generally. You don't want to use something sharp like a knife or something like that, obviously, but something with a smooth edge like a spoon, and you scoop that water up off of the rug. Now remember, this is assuming that all of the pile has continued to lay flat, because we've got those scales, and so they're protecting the rug from anything penetrating. So you can just scrape it in the direction of the pile and it should scrape off. And I would only disturb the pile when I was doing the scrub. I've seen my dad do it. Saw him do it on a couple of occasions where we didn't have a shop vac at the house, and so he would take a towel or a thick washcloth or something, a dry towel. He would put it down, and then he would suck the water into the towel using a regular vacuum. And the towel would absorb it, and that way, even though he didn't have a shop vac, he was able to still kind of wet vacuum it in some way. As long as the towel was there, to catch the water that was being pulled out of the rug. You definitely have to have strong suction on your vacuum if you're going to do that though. Just the rinse now, and then we will set it to dry. We won't bother recording the rinse. But let's take a look real quick. I mean, you saw how much water I put on there, and this is the only place the water actually penetrated. So that just shows you how really well that pile does in protecting the rugs. It's a little bit biley. You don't have to smell the liquid on the other side. I just did. It smells a little bit like bile. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to do a rinse on the back side here and make sure that there's no bile left in the rug. And then we will do the drying process. So doing the backside rinse is pretty much like doing the front side rinse. Now what I'm doing is I'm just trying to keep every wet surface of the rug from being covered. So I have something propping this up underneath. So you don't have to create a wind tunnel. Like if you can prop your rug up on something, the point is you don't want the wet sections of the rug to be covered. So the back is wet. I don't want the back to be on the ground. I don't want it to mildew. I don't want it to have any risk of decay to the fibers because these are, it's organic matter. It'll decay. I have the wet front propped up, and we're just going to have the fan blowing on this until it is totally and completely dry. Partially dry is not okay. It has to be totally and completely dry, bone dry. To give you an idea, that is my finger, and that is how fine the weave on this rug is. So when they count the fineness of a rug, they count knots per square inch. And you can see why they count knots per square inch. A really finely woven rug will have many knots per square inch, and a poorly woven rug will have very few knots per square inch. It's the difference in what will pass that pile boundary. If things are going past the pile and past the yarn and getting down into the rug, then the rug is going to deteriorate faster, it's going to look dirty faster. But when you have a very fine weave like this bee jar is, then nothing gets past that barrier of yarn, and so it lasts a lot longer. So you can see this is now the only clean spot on my rug. I don't think I've cleaned this entire thing in the entire time we've been married. I usually just do spot cleaning, and honestly, it's not the worse for wear for it. We've owned this for 16 years, and it still looks amazing. And so when it comes to buying handmade, really high quality Oriental rugs, I'm not talking about like Berbers or Duries or anything that's like poorly handmade. I mean like really high quality handmade rugs. They will last and they will continue to look good for just decades. I sometimes wonder which of my kids are going to get this in the will.